Good evening, everyone. This is Reading for Charity again. This has been the first one for a while. That's been a hectic couple of weeks, so I can apologise for these. I am a little bit behind on my reading, but only by a book. Only by a book, and you'll understand why I've been so reticent to get through one of the books I have. But we're going to do a review today. We're going to do a review tomorrow, hopefully, and with any luck, I'll be able to. There'll be about a book behind, and I should be able to try and claw it back this week. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Assuming this week isn't as crazy as the last couple, we should be okay. But anyway, usual spiel. Why are we doing this? This is a charity read for the Archie Foundation. It's a fantastic charity. It works with sick kids in the northeast of Scotland. They're trying to make folks' lives who go into hospital a little bit easier. If you've ever gone in as an adult, you know how terrifying an experience that can be. Going in as a child is a horrifying experience, and this charity tries to make those lives a little bit easier. It's a good charity to support. Proud to support it. There's been a lot of money raised for them over the last course of the year. I'm happy to raise some more. So this is 100 books over the course of a year, all chosen by donation. None of the money came out of my own pocket. It all came out of none of the money came out of the donation money. It all came out of my own pocket to fund the books. So going around all the charity shops with them. Over a third of the way through so far. It's going fine. Like we say, a one book behind. So it's a little bit of a state of union, I suppose. One book behind, so it's going okay so far. And you'll see why. This is the reason why I've been so slow the last week trying to get this read. Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. This week, this review number 36. I think my numbering is still correct. It might be wrong, but Pet Sematary by Stephen King is the book I read. I read this. Actually, I was actually on schedule for reading this. This was last Sunday's book, I think it was. I was on schedule for reading it. I had it read, but just events conspired against me to actually get this review done. And it's just continued on. So, what to say about this book? Going into reading Pet Sematary, I wasn't hopeful for a good book, having been stung by the Dark Tower series, which I thought was promising and had really good ideas, but was really poorly executed. I was worrying I was going to get more of the same out of Pet Sematary. I thought this was right. Okay, well, I'll steel myself. I'm not a horror fan in any way, shape, or form. I dislike horror movies intensely. I'm not a horror movie fan. I've not really read much horror books, so didn't really know what to think going into this. And I was hugely surprised. Every preconception I had about what this book was going to be was overturned by this book. Pet Sematary is absolutely bloody brilliant. It's a superb book. It's jumped so far up on my list of top books, it's not funny. I would contend that this book is horror. Stephen King tries to make this book horror in the last kind of 10 pages. When... No spoilers. The last 10 pages, once kind of the secondary deed has been done, and that resolves, or involves the deaths of certain people, and then, what happens in the last page, Stephen King tries to make that horror. But it's not horrible, and it's not scary, and it's not, frightening in any way, shape, or form. It's like the old ghost stories that I used to read when I was a kid. It's far more like that, He saw a ghost and his hair went white, and maybe it wasn't a ghost, maybe it was something else, but his hair still went white, so it must have been. It was a little bit more like that. So I don't think it's a horror story, and I genuinely, having finished it, still wouldn't call this a horror story. What I do think this is an absolutely fantastic novel about grief. It's a tremendous novel about grief. The kind of the slow descent into grief-laden madness that Louis goes through after. The small spoiler has to be done for the sake of the book, but after his son dies, the descent into madness from his grief is just so beautifully written. The whole thing, all the way through. I mean, even before the death of his son, it's fantastic. It's so well written. Just the whole setup of the family and the pet cemetery and what lies behind it, the Indian burial ground, and they even say it's, everyone talks about the Indian burial ground in Pet Cemetery, and yet he actually says in there it's older than the Indians. It's kind of pre-Indians. It predates that. And even they were slightly scared of it. So it's technically it's Indian burial ground, but technically it's even worse than that. But yeah, it's his whole setup for the book is fantastic. And after the Death of Gage and Louis starts losing it, it's just sublime. After that point, when he's just sitting there and the line comes to him, to his wife, when he's deciding what he's going to do, and he realises he's already made the decision even before he consciously has, in the way of the type of coffin he requests. It's just a little details like that, and it's magnificently well written. The story is superb, the execution is superb, the writing is fantastic, the way that he describes the grief of Louis, is amazing. The way he feels, he's the slightly, the light-headed feeling of being disconnected from your body as your body's going through the actions and your brain's looking at the side going, are you really doing that? You are. Okay, we're doing this then, are we? The two halves being completely disconnected from each other. It's superb. It's just absolutely superb. I cannot rate this book highly enough, and I don't want to spoil any of it. Unlike some of the books where I'm quite happy to spoil it because it's the spoilers aren't necessarily independent of your ability to enjoy the book. I think I would spoil this book for a lot of people by giving away the spoilers. I think the spoilers to this book are sufficient to spoil the book. It was I was really, really shocked at how good this book was, and it had none of the King hallmarks of the Dark Tower in it. So everything made sense, everything hung together. There was no good ideas but bad execution. There was none of the clunky writing and clunky dialogue that he had in the other in the Dark Tower. I mean, even the malevolent presence that's trying to keep people away from Louis while he makes the dread decision is fantastically written. I mean, there's none of what I got so angry about in the Dark Tower in this book. This book is just sheer brilliance. Now, I have one thing to say about something that annoyed me in the Dark Tower that mildly annoyed me in Pet Sematary. And that is Ka. Again, there's the idea that this disappears in Stephen King's, all his novels, all intertwined, yada yada yada. But in Pet Sematary, there is the implication that the events that happen because they're supposed to happen, or they're willed to happen by an external being, that no one has any choice in this. So when Judd talks about the fact that he showed Louis the Pet Cemetery in the first place, and hinted at what was beyond, and then showed him what was beyond after the cat died, he felt he wasn't himself when he was doing it. It was something else that brought him to do that. With the light behind the eyes, that's the idea. And then later on, when Louis is talking about the kind of being pushed towards that goal, and then Judd constantly falling asleep, and his wife falling asleep at the wheel of the car, trying to get there to stop whatever's going on. Again, it slightly spoils the story for me, because then it becomes slightly less of one man's terrible decision and everything that unfolds because of that, and more an external being dicks with a family. Essentially what it becomes. And I kind of ignored that element, despite the fact it was there nagging away because of some of the lines that Judd in particular makes. Because I think it's far more interesting that that Louis makes the decisions himself, and he brings the what happens is Louis' fault. I really want that more to be the case for this book. I was tinkering with one bit without thinking, was the whole thing a grief-laden instant in his head, and all the events are basically him just having a breakdown? But it can't be that, because of the cat. The cat rules that out. But the cat actually is... The cat should stop a lot of the other events in the book happening if Louis thinks about it, but the grief kind of stops that from happening. He stops thinking really rationally. after the death of his son, even though he knows what the cat is like after it's brought back. And he shouldn't. I mean, that should be the point where he goes, yeah, okay, even after the cat's brought back. Surely the first thought would be, you know what, let's move. Let's leave this place. This place is not good. Let's just leave the cat here. We'll go somewhere else. It's all good. There's something seriously freaky going on behind the house. But he doesn't. That would be the sensible thing, but he doesn't take the sensible option. Again, is it the whole Ka/malevolent entity stopping him from doing that? Maybe. But minor quibbles. Super minor quibbles on a fantastic novel, a really, really, really enjoyable read. Again, you know, some of the subject matter is unsettling rather than disturbing. You know, so reading it late at night and then going to bed, and you're kind of like, I'm gonna have to think about something other than the book tonight, just so I don't, you know, upset myself with some of the subject matter. But no, not horror, not scary. I don't think. Unsettling, yes, I can see that, and certainly upsetting if some of the themes are close to the bone, you know, or close to heart. I mean, if you child loss in particular, if you've suffered child loss, this book will be very, very close to the bone because of the way it's an exploration of grief as much as anything else. But superbly written, absolutely superbly written. So the this bit's almost redundant. Would I recommend this book to anyone? Yes, hell yes. Go and read this book. It's not a horror novel, but it is magnificent. It's an excellent, excellent book. It's everything that I was promised from Stephen King that I didn't get from The Dark Tower. It's a really, really good book. Seriously, go and read it. Really, really do. And I got this for like $1.50 off of Amazon Marketplace, so you can pick it up cheap. Also, libraries. Libraries still exist. Maybe not for much longer, but they do just now. Right, the review for tomorrow. The review for tomorrow is this piece of nonsense, 50 Shades of Grey. This is the review for tomorrow. It's taken a while to get through because I've been kind of trying to read it where people can't see me reading it. So there's been no reading it while I'm out and about. There's been no reading it while I've been waiting for my daughter's classes. You know, nothing that anyone can actually see me reading this book, because it's shameful book. No, not something to be seen. You know, what was it? It was last summer, 2 years ago, something like that, when it was the most. It was the book you had to be seen reading if you were cool. Now it's just like it's the exact opposite. Shame. People ringing bells and you're going shame. So yes, that's tomorrow's review, and it did take a while to get done. Yes. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I will speak to you all again tomorrow for 50 Shades of Grey, and then I should have another review hopefully for Wednesday, and then I'll try get another 2 done for Sunday, and then we should be back on track, because that was Sundays, that was Wednesdays, so I'm missing one for Sunday, I'm missing one for Wednesday, one for Sunday, so I need 3 books done by the end of this week, which I should hopefully get done. Fingers crossed. I'm a chunk of the way through one of them as it is. But yes, hopefully I'll speak to you all again tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. This is Reading for Charity. Good evening.